Hello, and welcome to Materializr. It is a 3D modeling program aimed at makers, but not meant to replace tools like Tinkercad or FreeCAD, but just something to sit right in the middle. As of present, we have releases on GitHub. It's open source and available for Linux as an app image, Windows as a portable or an installable, and on Android, particularly on F-Droid as a precompiled, or you can compile it from source on GitHub. A quick walk around the user interface. We have our usual menu on the top left, File with Open, Save, New Project, Import, Export, Settings, Exit. We have just these two under Edit for now. Undo, Redo. View allows us to reset the camera, select a frame, do a section view, and hide all the panels. And we can quickly select between dark and light theme. And then Help is just a general user guide. The keyboard shortcuts, we can check for updates. And then a quick getting started guide, less comprehensive than user guide, and then just general about. On the left hand side, these are movable, but this default view is set up like this. We have our tools menu, which will only populate with tools that are available given the selection in the main viewport here. And on the top right, we have our items menu, and we have properties and history, which you do start with a demo box. I've deleted it already. Moving on from basic UI overview, we can go ahead and get started on a project. It's probably the easiest way to start building familiarity with it. So the way that I like to get started on things, I'll just do a sketch right on the base plane. So here we are, we have the 1mm snap steps. We can adjust that up and down. You get really fine view at 0.1, 0.5. These are all millimeters. Do 1mm and we can go up to 10. And right clicking on this turns the snap grid off entirely, or we can turn it right back on. View cube up on top, so in case we need to move around and don't want to click around on the viewport, that's right there. And so to get started, I'm going to make a project box. So we're going to go ahead and start with a rectangle. So I'll go here, we'll just make it 20 by 40. How about that? All right. And you can click and drag with that, or alternatively, we can, we'll go a little bigger. So we can do 40, enter, by 60, enter. And then that makes us a rectangle that is 40 wide by 60 tall. And also we can draw it from the corner or the center, depending on what your needs are at the time. And we have several drawing options here as well. We can do lines, circles, we can do an arc, spline, polygon, text, which we have 10 fonts to choose from right now, import SVG in case you wanted to imprint a logo within a surface, and trim is basically a glorified backspace. We can also copy elements within a sketch, mirror elements within a sketch, or the whole sketch. And we can do linear and circular patterns. For the project box, I'm not going to be using much of this, but we'll start with the rectangle and a few circles in the corners, because what's a project box if you can't fasten it closed? So we'll put one there, and here's the inferences at work already. We are going to symmetrically place the center of the next circle here, go to 4, And also, same as with the rectangle, if I just type 4 and hit enter, we got a 4mm circle right here. And then we'll go to the bottom and go 4mm and symmetrical to that. We'll do 4mm again. Now with that, I'll go ahead and finish this sketch. Exit sketch will just discard. Finish sketch applies it to the project. So we'll finish sketch, and then right click is how I have it set up. There are other ways you can set up your navigation. And rotate out of that view, and we'll just click the sketch. And then select push pull, and then we can drag up. And let's say I want it to be 40mm tall. There we go. We can also type here or use the slider. And then there's this option here, which is symmetric. So if I cancel this, we'll do push pull again, just to show you what that does. So we'll pull and it will symmetrically, so we're out 10mm from the origin. That's 20mm tall in total. I don't want that though, so I'm going to go to 40. Alright, and we'll confirm. And then from here, I want to define the interior of the box. So we're going to sketch again. And I want 2mm walls. So I'll start 2mm from there. Exceed our hole by 2mm. And just keep it going here. Right there. Oh, okay, I already noticed a mistake. My circle up here and here is 3mm off the side, whereas this one's only 2. And I actually want it to all be 2mm, so I'm going to make a quick edit here. We'll finish the sketch and come back. Let's slow double click will allow us to select the sketch through a body. So what I'm going to do is edit sketch, and we'll be on the select move. So I want to move this 1mm that way, 1mm that way. Same with this one, 1mm that way, 1mm that way. So editing the previous sketch also edits the body which resulted from it. So with that, we're finished with it, and we'll go ahead and proceed to edit this sketch. Now, I'm going to go ahead and trim out these lines here. And we'll trim that one too. Extra endpoints drive me crazy. Here we go. So, go 2mm from that one to 2mm here. 6. Symmetrical with that side. Symmetrical. There we go. There, and there. Alright, once we've completed a loop, then the line draw tool automatically stops. So now that we're here, we have a completed sketch on the face, on the top face of this box outline. So now what we'll do is select that sketch and we'll push pull. Now, I have it set to, we made it 40mm tall. So what I want to do is do -38. That leaves me 2mm off the bottom, and even with my wall plan there. So now I will go ahead and hide that sketch, and we can actually demonstrate our section view. See, we got nice even walls, all 2 millimeters. Okay. So now that we got the inside of the box defined here, next we could move on to making this look a little better. So I'm holding Control and clicking on the edges. They'll glow green like that, indicating that they're selected. And I'm doing quite a few here. Select those, and then these three. We also have the feature where if you're at the middle point right here and click, you can select many of them, but I don't want those top edges. I just want these right here. And what we're going to do is add a fillet, and I'm going to make that be about 2.8 millimeters. There we go. We got nice, flowy, not jagged edges there. And then on the outside, about the same. We'll select the outer four, make it look nice. And we'll do about 2.8 out here too. And that's our basic project box. Now, with that finished, I can go ahead and copy. We'll duplicate the sketch, which is our floor sketch right here. And we're showing both, which is a little confusing because they both end up in the exact same space. So we'll hide the original sketch, which that also works for bodies. We can hide it and unhide it. I'll hide it for now. And then what we're going to do with this sketch is actually move it up to, we'll go up to 42 millimeters. Alright, so we're 2 millimeters above the top of our box. I'll just confirm that. Yep, 2 millimeters above. And we'll rename this to box. And we can also change the color of the box too if we so please. But I like to leave them the default gray. It works just fine. Anyways, we'll go back to hiding that, and we'll rename this sketch as well, just to show we can. So we got lid template. Alright, so we'll close the move. So now we have this moved up. Now we can go ahead and start creating our lid. So I'm going to edit this sketch, and what I'm going to do is, I'm in the select move tool. Usually when you're in edit, this is the first one that pops up here. So I'm going to move each one of these walls just out by 1 millimeter. They do move independently of each other. So we'll do 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, and 1 millimeter. Alright, so we want our box lid a little bit bigger than the box so they're not too tight of a fit. So now that we've got that, I have one other feature I want to add, which is just a little lip around the box. And we'll finish the sketch there. So now we have basic template for the lid. So now what I'm going to do is pull this down 2 millimeters, confirm that. We can also use enter or escape to confirm or cancel pretty much any click and drag operation. And we're going to do the same here, except I'm going to go down 6 millimeters. And we'll confirm that. We'll hide our lid template sketch. Alright, and then you can hold Control and fast double click to select multiple bodies, or you can drag and you'll also select whatever's in the viewfinder that way. And for this, since I did push-pull two separate things, we're going to have two separate bodies with this, but I want to go ahead and turn those into one. So we're going to hit Union. And you can see the line smoothed out. We just have one box lid. Now, with this, we had those 2.8 millimeter fillets on the outside edges of our box. So I am going to select these inside edges here. We're going to do a 3 millimeter fillet. Confirm. All four corners. Good. Alright. And then, since this is a 1 millimeter thick wall that we've got here going all the way around, just to make it look neat, not really necessary or a hard rule to follow, but I'm going to put all of these outside edges at a 4 millimeter fillet. And you'll see it here. It just looks nice. Alright, and that's a completed lid. Technically a completed box. But let's go one step further, and just as demonstration, I don't use countersinks all that much, but if you wanted to, we could use, instead of a fillet, we could use a fillet and get a rounded hole. If the geometry is impossible, it'll just deny. But the only reason that is because the bottom of our fillet is exceeding the thickness of our lid here. Either way though, I don't want that, so we'll just cancel. Instead, I actually want a chamfer. And we could do a single edge, which gives you a nice countersunk hole. And we could also do 2 dimensions, just in case you find you need a steeper or a shallower angle. You can edit those independently, but for most countersinks, a nice 45-degree angle will do the job just fine. Alright, and that concludes the most important operations within here. And then lastly, go ahead and rename these again. I must have changed something. So we'll rename this to box, and we'll rename this to lid. Pretty simple. Another little nice to have that was baked into here. You may notice I have 3.2 millimeter holes. Well, I don't know if you can measure or not with your eyes like that. I'm impressed if you can. But we have slightly smaller holes in the box than we do on the lid, on all of them except this guy over here. But one nice thing we can do, if we notice we made a mistake like that, just click the interior of the hole that's the wrong size. We'll edit the diameter, 3.2. There we go. And now it matches all the rest. And then lastly, we need to get to exporting, because the primary target for this particular software is going to be 3D printing, and you need an STL file to be able to print. Alright, so to save a file, we have 2 Um, well, three ways to export the files, just depends on what's easiest to you. We can select it from here, right-click and export to STL. We can also right-click on the object itself and export to STL, or we can, from here, File, Export to STL. I like the right-click menu, it just feels fastest to me. So we'll export this body to STL. You'll notice I already did the lid, but it pre-names it to whichever name you set in the bodies list here. So we'll just replace the one I made earlier. Replace that, and then the same is true of this one. You right-click this body, export to STL, and we've got box.stl. And then you're ready to print. And then lastly, throughout our project, you can see a bunch of items in our history here. And scroll through that. See everything we've done. Edit fillets. We can see where we duplicated everything we've done. So if you need to go back and edit something, you can simply undo or change the parameters within here. And then the same is also true if you select this body. You can see it's named box in the properties, change its visibility, and see various dimensional information about any given thing that's selected in here. And within a sketch, you'll also be able to edit your parameters of any selected item within this properties menu. And that'll pretty much conclude our basic tutorial of Materializr. We will have a link to the GitHub and Discord down in the description of this video. So if there's any questions, feel free to join in on the community and ask away. And there may be more in-depth videos in the future for this project, but for now, I feel like this should get everyone at least started. I hope you've enjoyed watching and hope you've learned something. And with that, go out and make something cool.